Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one. Kayo was a famous maiko, or geisha apprentice, during the early Meiji period in the 1870s in Kyoto. Her beauty was so striking that she became known throughout the city. A kabuki actor even said that a beautiful girl like this will not be seen again in a lifetime of geisha. Kayo's fame was such that her presence attracted spectators and clients from afar, eager to see her. Here we see three women on a motorized tricycle in Tokyo, 1920. At the time, new technologies were beginning to transform urban life, and this vehicle offered a practical and modern means of transportation. Motorized tricycles were popular in the early 20th century, before more sophisticated cars became accessible. They were used to transport goods and passengers, especially in narrow and busy streets like those of Tokyo. A group of future geishas, the maiko, sips tea on a balcony overlooking the Kamo River in Kyoto, 1910. Dressed in colorful kimonos and elaborate makeup, the young women embodied Japanese cultural tradition. During this period, maiko began their training in arts such as dance, music, and refined conversation, crucial to becoming geishas, and were seen as symbols of Kyoto's elegance and culture. Women walk along the beach in Kamakura in 1929, wearing modern bathing suits with short skirts and accessories like hats and capes to protect themselves from the sun. At the time, Japan was beginning to adopt Western styles, and swimsuits were changing. Kamakura was one of the first areas in Japan to make sea bathing a common activity, becoming a popular place for the first Western-style swims. In this early 20th century photo, an itinerant vendor displays his candy stall for three boys. These vendors usually used small bells to announce their arrival, attracting customers from a distance. The sweets, often handmade with local ingredients, were a rare treat for families of the time. A samurai poses holding his bow and wearing a yugote on his arm, a special protection for archers that prevents friction from the bowstring. The yumi, the long bow characteristic of Japanese warriors, required great skill due to its size. Unlike Western bows, the yumi allowed long-distance shots and was essential in samurai training, which emphasized precision and control. In 1900, a rural family posed in front of their thatched roof house next to a water-powered grain mill. These mills were important in mountainous areas of Japan, where rainwater helped grind rice and other grains, staples of the diet. This practical solution allowed families to utilize natural resources, ensuring sustenance in an isolated and self-sufficient place. A member of the Ainu ethnic group displays a traditional tattoo on their lips, a practice common among Ainu women. These tattoos, which could also be done around the mouth, on the hands, and on the arms, were applied gradually from childhood and completed in adulthood. The tattoos symbolized maturity and were linked to spiritual beliefs, in addition to being seen as a form of protection against evil spirits. In a rare 1910 photograph taken in Hokkaido, Ainu men appear in front of a fishing boat. The Ainu, one of Japan's most enigmatic tribes, had a distinct culture, with their own language, beliefs, and traditions. Living in harmony with nature, they depended on hunting, fishing, and gathering, revering the spirits of animals and the land, practices preserved for generations despite surrounding changes. Rickshaw drivers worked hard on the streets of Yokohama, transporting passengers in the late 19th century. These vehicles, pulled by runners, were common in Japan, especially in large cities. They offered a practical and affordable way to get around for both residents and visitors. Despite the physical effort required from the drivers, rickshaws became part of the urban routine until the arrival of the first motorized cars. With nimble and experienced fingers, a weaver manipulates silk threads on a wooden loom in Yokohama around 1910. Silk was one of Japan's main products, and weaving skill was highly valued. Work on the loom required concentration and precision in every movement. Weavers, usually women, spent years perfecting their technique to produce fine fabrics, used for kimonos and export. Mothers and children fishing together in a scene that was quite common in rural areas of Japan in 1900. The women, who balanced domestic work with tasks in the fields, often took their children fishing. It was a way to reconcile work with caring for the little ones, while the children learned early on the importance of work. In Yokohama at the end of the 19th century, The streets were decorated with large bamboo banners promoting theater performances and other attractions. After Japan opened in 1854, the city became a cultural meeting point, with merchants and artists from various parts of the world. Yokohama was also the first Japanese city to install public electric lighting in 1878, which contributed to its rapid growth as one of the country's largest ports. On the streets of Japan in 1890, it was common to see itinerant vendors pulling large carts loaded with household utensils. With much effort, they transported items like pots, basins, and brooms, facing rough roads and long distances. Traveling through neighborhoods and villages, they brought products to areas without permanent stores, ensuring families had access to basic everyday items. Around 1900, in a small workshop, skilled shoemakers crafted traditional Japanese Geta sandals, known for their high wooden soles. These sandals were worn by men and women to keep their feet dry on rainy and muddy days. Each pair was carefully made, with wood chosen for durability and comfort. Inhabitants of Osaka, gathered on Dotonbori Street, posed for a photo in 1893. The street, famous for its theaters, restaurants, and shops, was a central and vibrant place in residents' daily lives. Later, Dotonbori would become even more iconic with neon signs, transforming into a symbol of the modern city. An old lumberjack returns from the mountains, crossing the ancient temple grounds in Hakone in 1898. Located about 50 miles west of Tokyo, Hakone is famous for its mountainous landscapes and natural hot springs. Many local lumberjacks, like the one in the photo, worked in charcoal production, essential for heating homes and cooking, and an important energy source in areas far from Tokyo. Men shape large clay pieces to create giant masks, used in festivals and traditional ceremonies in Japan. The process required skill and patience, with each detail sculpted precisely before the clay dried. These masks, representing gods, demons, or folkloric characters, were part of the celebration, symbolizing protection or warding off evil spirits. During New Year's celebrations in the 19th century, firefighters in Yokohama performed acrobatic displays, climbing tall ladders and performing balancing acts. Known as dezomashiki, these presentations were common in cities with fire departments. Beyond entertainment, they showcased the skill and courage of firefighters, vital for facing the frequent fires in wooden buildings. In 1890, Japan saw its first skyscraper rise, the Ryunkaku, in Tokyo. As seen in the background of this photo, the 12-story building became a symbol of modernization, attracting visitors with its panoramic views and shops. 4 years after its completion, the Ryunkaku was damaged by an earthquake and reinforced. However, it did not withstand the Great Earthquake of 1923, which caused its destruction. Handcarts loaded with goods and street vendors announcing their products enlivened the city. Small merchants spread out on the streets offering food and daily items. These vendors were part of the urban rhythm, facilitating residents' access to daily products, while the street stayed bustling with the sound of offers and constant comings and goings. An itinerant vegetable vendor shows his selection to a customer around 1880. Carrying baskets on a pole, he offers fresh produce directly to residents. These vendors, called tenpoyama, changed neighborhoods according to the season and supply. Because they were direct from the producer, the vegetables were cheaper, allowing low-income families to afford them. Women plant rice in flooded fields, probably in the rural region of Kyushu. Wearing traditional wooden clogs called geta, they place the seedlings in shallow waters to prevent weeds from growing and harming the crop. Workers draw water from a well in the 1890s, an essential task in rural areas where the well was the main water source for families and crops. In some regions of Japan, these wells also served to store fresh fish. The cooler water at the bottom helped preserve the fish, working as an improvised refrigerator long before modern appliances arrived. Peasants thresh rice, removing grains from the stalks with simple tools. The highest quality rice after threshing was set aside for religious rituals or temple offerings, showing its spiritual value in Japanese culture. The rest was stored for consumption throughout the year, ensuring families had food until the next harvest. A farmer wears a mino, a straw cape used to protect him from the rain. Common among farmers and rural workers, the mino was effective at repelling water and keeping the body dry during long hours outdoors. Lightweight and easy to make, It was made from natural materials such as rice straw. In some regions, it also served as protection against the cold. Two barbers attend clients, one shaving and the other cutting hair. In the 17th century, these professionals were essential, especially for samurai. Maintaining the chanmaj, the traditional samurai hairstyle, was crucial, and barbers skilled in this style were respected for preserving the samurai's identity and prestige through their cuts. At the center of Watanoyu, we see a fire tower with a bell at the top. The latter, a freestanding structure, was anchored to the ground or rooftops, allowing quick access to upper floors for rescues or fire control in case of fires. The bell, common in many of these areas, alerted the community to emergencies, ensuring a quick and organized response when needed. Here we see a newspaper vendor from the 1870s. At the time, newspaper sales were growing rapidly, and many of these vendors did more than just deliver copies. They announced the headlines aloud while ringing a bell, a practice called yobiyoshi. This way, they spread the news even to those who could not read, bringing updates to everyone passing by. In a busy street in Tokyo in 1905, during the Sanja Matsuri, one of the city's largest festivals, we see decorated streetcars circulating among the crowd. Although new means of transportation like streetcars were already present, the jinrikisha remained popular on the streets, as we can see in this photo, and continued to be used for several decades until it was gradually replaced by motorized vehicles. Buddhist monks walk in procession on the grounds of Tofuku-ji, a historic temple in Kyoto, in 1930. They headed to the city to raise donations for the temple's reconstruction, which had suffered damage from fires and time. This community support helped maintain the temple, ensuring that its architecture and traditions were preserved for future generations. A kendo school in 1929 trains young people in the art of the sword. Dressed in protective armor and wielding bamboo swords, the students practiced attack and defense techniques under the guidance of experienced masters. Kendo, which means the way of the sword, went beyond physical training, teaching discipline, concentration, and respect. At the time, Kendo was valued as a way to shape young people's character, being part of the curriculum in several schools. Three men practice Kyudo, traditional Japanese archery. Kyudo is a martial art focused on precision and control, also serving as a form of moving meditation. In Kyudo, the goal goes beyond hitting the target. Practitioners seek the truth of movement, where each arrow shot represents a step in the process of self-discovery, with a focus on balance between body and mind. Sumo wrestlers prepare for a fight in an outdoor arena at Eko-in Temple in Tokyo. The temple was a popular venue for sumo competitions that attracted large crowds and was one of the first to host organized tournaments. The practice became so popular that over time, Ryogoku established itself as the center of sumo in Tokyo, with permanent arenas built for competitions. A sumo wrestler awaits the start of the fight outdoors, dressed in the traditional mawashi. These competitions, often held at festivals, brought the community together around this ancient sport. Sumo wrestlers, often weighing over 330 pounds, used their body mass, along with specific techniques for stability and strength, qualities necessary to face their opponents and stay in the ring. After the Great Kanto earthquake, people desperate for refuge tried to board one of the few trains still operating out of Tokyo. With the capital devastated and transportation limited, many risked the journey to escape the destruction. The shortage of trains and harsh conditions made the trip even more dangerous, but for many, it was the only way to flee the ruined city. Pontaro and Ryu, two geishas from the Yoshicho district in Tokyo, pose with swords in a sword dance in 1903. This performance combined grace and skill, with the geishas wielding the swords rhythmically and elegantly. The dance was part of the entertainment in geisha districts, where they showcased talents in music, dance, and acting, enchanting audiences with their artistic abilities and refined presence. A female samurai, around 1870, dressed in armor, ready for battle. The Onabugisha, as they were known, trained in martial arts and defended their families in times of war. Although they primarily operated in domestic life, they were skilled with swords and other weapons. Thus, even in a male-dominated society, these women played a fundamental role in defense and combat. A Buddhist warrior monk dressed in clerical robes over armor in Tokyo, 1895. These monks, known as Sohei, were members of Buddhist temples who, during certain periods, took up arms to protect their temples or even participate in battles. Despite their religious position, many Sohei were trained in military techniques and wore armor like samurai warriors. 4 samurai warriors display their weapons, including the katana, spears, yari, and bows, yumi, showcasing the diversity of armaments used in battle. Despite the arrival of firearms, many samurai preferred traditional weapons, valuing the skill required to handle them. The katana, in particular, was considered an extension of the samurai's soul, carrying symbolism beyond combat. A samurai warrior displays his hair in a chonmaj topknot around 1890. This style, with shaved sides and hair tied on top, was a status symbol among samurai. During the Meiji era, the government encouraged changes in Japanese appearance, replacing the chonmaj with Western hairstyles. Even so, many samurai kept the chonmaj, preserving the samurai class's tradition. Here we see an elderly man with 2 children at the entrance of a cave that served as a dwelling near Mount Fuji. In rural areas where building houses was difficult, some families used caves as shelter, protecting themselves from the cold and rain. Some natural caves near Mount Fuji were also considered sacred places, and some families believed that living close to them brought spiritual protection, as well as shelter. The view of Nagasaki Harbor around 1870 shows the foreign settlement in Ura and Higashiyamate. During the isolation period, Nagasaki was one of the few cities open to trade with foreigners, mainly through Dejima port. The city maintained a strong influence of Japanese culture, blending Western and local elements. Peasants work on tea harvesting in Yuzi around 1880. The harvest was done manually to ensure the quality of the leaves, a practice that required patience and skill. Tea harvested in these areas was often intended for religious ceremonies in nearby temples, where its consumption was considered an act of purification and spiritual contemplation. A crowd gathers in Isayama Shrine Park in Yokohama in 1890. This Shinto shrine was an important meeting place, especially during festivals. Built to protect Yokohama from natural disasters and ensure local prosperity, it became a symbol of resilience, surviving the great earthquake of 1923, which devastated the city. In this 1887 photo, we see Komuso monks in traditional attire with bamboo baskets on their heads. These monks traveled through Japan playing bamboo flutes to beg for alms, using music as a form of meditation to seek enlightenment. The flute's sound was seen as a form of spiritual purification, and their presence on the streets brought calm and serenity to communities. A group of artists performs a rope dance, combining acrobatics and balance. Initially performed to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck at festivals and important events, this practice became a popular form of entertainment, mixing theater and physical skills. A large silk factory with workers focused on producing this important fabric for Japan's economy. Silk, valued and exported to various countries, boosted Japan's economic growth. Many factories used traditional silkworm breeding methods, perfected over generations, ensuring the recognized quality of Japanese silk in the international market. In a martial arts demonstration, boys and girls from Shuri Primary School showcased their skills in 1937. Karate, deeply rooted in Okinawan culture, was banned in 1930 by the Japanese government, which feared it would be used as a form of resistance. The ban aimed to control local cultural practices, but karate continued to be taught secretly and was liberated after World War II. The famous brothel known as Jinpuro displays prostitutes standing in windows, while jinrikisha pullers wait for customers. At the time, displaying women in windows was common to attract clients, especially in entertainment districts. Many brothels had multiple floors, and the floor on which the prostitute stood reflected her status. The higher the floor, the higher the value and position of the professional within the house. A dense crowd accompanies a funeral procession in 1890. The death of an important figure during Emperor Meiji's period mobilized the entire society, turning funerals into major events. With fine attire and many participants, the processions displayed the deceased's status and wealth as a last way to honor and exalt their importance in society. A street full of banners and lanterns, prepared for a festival, gathers residents and visitors. Lanterns like these, hung along the streets, not only decorated the cities, but also had a symbolic purpose, It was believed that they illuminated the path for the ancestors' spirits, inviting them to participate in the festivities. Around 1900, it became common to see children wearing clothes inspired by Navy uniforms, a fashion that became popular during the Meiji era. Families liked to dress their children in these outfits, imitating Western naval uniforms, at parties and important events. This style was seen as modern and was part of the changes Japan was experiencing, with a strong foreign influence entering the country. 3 women in colorful kimonos gather around a served table. One plays the shamisen, a 3-string Japanese instrument popular in traditional music and especially present in bunraku and kabuki performances. In the past, it was mainly played by women who also danced, becoming a notable presence in cultural events and celebrations at the Japanese court. Workers kneel in a kitchen preparing dinner directly on the floor. In late 19th century Japan, it was common for meals to be prepared this way due to the orori, an embedded hearth that heated the space and cooked food. The orori allowed people to gather around the fire, facilitating meal preparation. The kneeling position was traditional for various domestic activities, including cooking. Men in ceremonial attire carry the bride's furniture and belongings from her parents' house to the groom's residence. Until the end of the 20th century, this tradition in Japan symbolized the beginning of married life with the transportation of items to the new home. The gesture represented respect and family celebration, with each object carried marking the future the couple would build together. In the early 1930s, Tokyo Station, located in the Marunouchi business district, was one of the city's main connection points, close to the Imperial Palace Gardens and the famous Ginza district. With its architecture inspired by the Western style, the station stood out as a symbol of Japan's modernization. Nagoya Castle is a remarkable symbol of Japanese history. Built in the early 17th century, it underwent several restorations after being damaged by fires. Even then, it was a landmark of the city, with its golden fish-shaped roof attracting attention and symbolizing prosperity and protection. In a delicate process, a woman removes silk from the cocoons, dipping them in hot water to loosen the threads. This work required patience and precision, skills many women acquired from a young age. In some regions, families raised silkworms in their own homes, creating the cocoons that would be sold to factories, which helped supplement family income. A samurai displays his tattooed back, a practice generally associated with criminals, but also adopted by some warriors to express values such as loyalty to the clan or resilience. In some cases, it was believed that tattoos of dragons or sacred animals offered spiritual protection, warding off evil spirits and strengthening the samurai in battles. These marks symbolize the warrior's identity and purpose. 4 peasants carry a wealthy woman in a travel chair called a kago. Made of bamboo and decorated with fabrics, the kago was a common means of transport for members of the Japanese elite, especially in mountainous or hard-to-reach areas. These carriers, often from peasant families, traveled long distances over difficult terrain, and the work required strength and endurance. Farmers, equipped with simple tools, harvest rice in vast fields in 1911. Rice, vital for the country's diet, was cultivated with great effort. Work in the fields was essential for the Japanese economy, sustaining rural life and the growing population. Each harvest was the result of long hours of labor, passing from generation to generation. On a frosty day in 1956, in Niigata Prefecture, a group of children wearing straw capes walks through the snow toward New Year festivities. These capes, common in Niigata's rural areas, protect against intense cold and are ideal for facing heavy snowfalls. At New Year's, families gather for traditional celebrations, and crossing the snow to the event is part of the traditions. In 1890, the cage with prostitutes represented the lowest level in Japan's brothel system. These women were kept in small barred compartments, displayed to clients like merchandise. This system, though tragic and inhumane, reflected the harsh conditions many women faced at the time, often forced into such lives by family debts or a lack of economic alternatives. This is the famous Sakurada Gate, site of the Sakuradaman incident in 1860, where Tairo, Chief Minister Tu Naosuke, was assassinated by samurai from the Mito and Satsuma clans. The attack was motivated by strong opposition from these clans to Japan's opening policy toward the West, led by Naosuke, who signed trade treaties with foreign powers without internal consensus, generating revolt among those who feared foreign influence. A troupe of young actors performs a kabuki play, a theatrical style that combines drama, music, and dance, drawing great curiosity from Western visitors to Japan. In kabuki, even female roles were played by men and boys called onagata. These young actors devoted themselves intensely to training to portray female gestures and postures accurately, striving for perfection in their performance. The bamboo forest of Kyoto, located in Arashiyama, is famous for its trails surrounded by bamboo that reach impressive heights of up to 98 feet. Walking through the forest is a unique experience, with light passing between the stems and the sound of wind in the leaves, creating a peaceful atmosphere. In Japanese culture, bamboo symbolizes strength and resilience, and ancient beliefs say it protects against evil spirits. People cross a suspension bridge near Mount Fuji. Many of these bridges were built to withstand heavy loads, allowing merchants and farmers to transport products like rice and wood across rivers and ravines. These bridges were essential for connecting villages and helping trade in mountainous areas where there were few transportation options. This tea house in Nakasendo was the ideal place for travelers to rest and warm up with a cup of tea on the route between Edo, now Tokyo, and Kyoto. In addition to a break, these places served as meeting points to share road stories. Some tea houses also served as small post stations where travelers could leave messages or packages. In the 1890s, fish markets in Yokohama were popular gathering points, filled with fresh fish and seafood displayed on wooden stalls. Standing there, chatting and choosing the best catch of the day was part of the routine for many. At the time, Yokohama was one of Japan's largest commercial ports, and the variety of seafood attracted even foreigners arriving in the country. A man carries rice bundles on a small cart toward the market. Besides being essential for food, rice became an important economic indicator, with its market price reflecting the country's economic health. Harvests also served as the basis for determining taxes, and farmers often paid their debts in rice. On a quiet afternoon in Japan around 1900, a woman relaxes in an ofuro, a wooden tub with a chimney to keep the water hot. This bath, traditional in Japanese homes, provided a moment of rest and well-being, with the wood-heated structure ensuring that the water stayed warm for long periods, becoming a ritual of relaxation and purification. A view of the destruction in Tokyo after the 1923 earthquake and fire captured from the top of the Imperial Hotel. Much of the city was razed, mostly by fires that followed the tremor. In just 4 minutes, the earthquake caused devastating damage, leaving over 1 million homeless. In some areas, the flames burned for more than 48 hours, consuming entire neighborhoods. Japanese soldiers work on the ruins of the Kandabashi Bridge in Tokyo after the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. With a magnitude between 7.9 and 8.4, the earthquake destroyed Tokyo, Yokohama, and other areas, leaving over 140,000 casualties. The tragedy mobilized a large rescue and reconstruction operation, with the armed forces playing a crucial role in clearing the affected areas and restoring infrastructure and order in the devastated regions. People enjoy the refreshing summer of 1915 by bathing in a river. On hot days, rivers and streams were places to cool off and socialize, bringing together families and friends seeking relief from the heat. In regions with Shinto beliefs, the practice was also seen as spiritual purification, as running water was associated with cleansing of body and mind. Betty Broadbent, known as the Tattooed Venus in Sydney, on April 4, 1938. She was one of the most famous women to display tattoos at the time, and her unique appearance made her a circus star and entertainment attraction. Her collection of tattoos, which covered much of her body, was a form of art and also a symbol of resistance against conventional beauty standards.